The crystal chandeliers of Bernardine cast golden light across the private dining room as I smoothed my simple black dress and checked my watch. 7:30 p.m. Right on time for Dad's 60th birthday celebration, though celebration felt like the wrong word for what was about to unfold. I'd deliberately chosen the corner seat with my back to the wall, an old habit from my corporate days that served me well tonight. From here I could see everyone. Mom in her designer emerald gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, my older brother Derek adjusting his Armani tie while whispering something to his wife Christina, and my younger sister Melissa scrolling through her phone, already bored. Dad sat at the head of the mahogany table in his custom-tailored navy suit, looking every inch the successful investment banker he'd been for 35 years. The Harrison family patriarch, commanding respect and attention wherever he went. At least that's how he saw himself. Sophie, Mom's voice cut through the gentle murmur of the restaurant like a blade. I'm surprised you actually showed up. I took a sip of my water, letting the comment hang in the air. Wouldn't miss Dad's birthday, Mom. Really? Derek leaned forward, his voice carrying that condescending tone I'd grown up hearing. Because you missed Christmas, Easter, and Mom's birthday this year. I was working, I replied evenly. Christina laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Working where exactly? That little bookkeeping job you refused to talk about. The server approached our table, Maria. I recognized her from my previous visits to check on the restaurant operations. She set down the appetizer course with professional precision, but I caught her subtle nod of acknowledgement. Good. Everything was going according to plan. So Sophie, Dad began, cutting into his seared scallops, your mother and I have been talking. We think it's time you got serious about your future. Here it comes. I'd been expecting this conversation for months. Serious how? Derek's firm has an opening in their accounting department, Mom said, dabbing her lips with the linen napkin. Entry level of course, but it's a start. You could work your way up. Under Derek's supervision, Christina added with barely concealed glee. I looked at my brother, who was trying and failing to appear humble about the generous offer. Derek Harrison, junior partner at Whitman & Associates, making $200,000 a year and convinced he was master of the universe. That's kind of you, I said carefully, but I'm happy with my current situation. Melissa finally looked up from her phone. What situation? You live in that tiny apartment in Queens, drive a 10-year-old Honda, and work for some company nobody's ever heard of. Phoenix Capital Management, I said quietly. See. Melissa gestured dramatically. Never heard of it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Phoenix Capital Management, my holding company that owns 17 businesses across 3 states, including a portfolio worth $3.2 billion. But to my family I was still just Sophie, the middle child who never quite measured up. The thing is, sweetheart, Dad continued, his voice taking on the patronizing tone he used when he thought he was being fatherly, you're 32 years old. Most women your age are married with children, building real lives. Not playing around with these little jobs. Your biological clock is ticking, Mom added helpfully. And honestly, what man wants to marry a woman with no prospects? I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I'd had throughout childhood whenever they'd compared me to Derek's academic achievements or Melissa's social success. The difference was, now I had the power to do something about it. I think you're underestimating my prospects, I said. Derek laughed. Sophie, we love you, but let's be realistic. You barely finished college, you've never held a serious job, and you refuse to accept help from people who actually know how the world works. The help comes with strings, I pointed out. Of course it does, Mom snapped. That's how family works. We support each other, we make sacrifices, we maintain certain standards. The main course arrived, perfectly prepared filet mignon with truffle sauce. I recognized the chef's signature presentation. Marcus had been doing excellent work since I'd hired him away from Le Cirque 6 months ago. Speaking of standards, Christina said, eyeing my simple dress with obvious disdain, maybe we could take you shopping this weekend? Help you find some appropriate clothes. What's wrong with what I'm wearing? Nothing if you're going to a PTA meeting, Melissa said, not looking up from her Instagram story. But we're at Bernardine. This is a special occasion. I glanced around the dining room. I'd personally overseen the renovation of last year. The hand-painted murals, the imported Italian marble floors, The custom millwork that had cost more than Derek's annual salary. Special occasion indeed. You know what your problem is, Sophie? Dad was warming up to one of his lectures now. You've never learned to think strategically. Success requires planning, networking, playing the game. Like you did? I asked. His face darkened slightly. I built a career from nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks to provide for this family, to give you opportunities one never had. And we're grateful, Derek said quickly, shooting me a warning look. Some of us, anyway. The conversation continued through dinner. Mom critiquing my career choices, Derek offering unsolicited advice about financial planning, Christina making passive-aggressive comments about my appearance, and Melissa largely ignoring everyone except when she sensed an opportunity to join in mocking me. I ate in relative silence, observing the dynamics I'd grown up with. The subtle put-downs disguised as concern, the way they talked about me like I wasn't there, the assumption that their way of measuring success was the only one that mattered. As the dessert course was served, a beautiful chocolate soufflé that our pastry chef had spent months perfecting, Mom leaned back in her chair and fixed me with that look I knew too well. Sophie, we need to talk about something else. Here it comes. Your grandmother's will. I kept my expression neutral, though my pulse quickened. As you know, Grandma Rose left her house in the Hamptons to be split among her grandchildren. I remember. Well, Derek and Melissa have been discussing it, and we think it makes more sense to sell the property and divide the proceeds. The house needs extensive renovations and frankly, you can't afford your share of the upkeep. I looked at Derek, who was studying his wine glass like it contained the secrets of the universe. This was your idea? It's practical, Sophie. The property taxes alone are $40,000 a year. The roof needs replacing, the foundation has issues, the whole place needs updating. We're talking about a $250,000 renovation minimum. So you've decided for me. We've decided what's best for the family, Mom said firmly. Derek found a buyer willing to pay $2.8 million. After taxes and fees, you'd walk away with about $900,000. That's more money than you'll see in years at your current job. The manipulation was breathtaking in its audacity. Grandma Rose's house, the one place in my childhood where I'd felt truly loved and accepted, reduced to a financial transaction my family wanted to control. What if I don't want to sell? Christina laughed. Sophie, be serious. You can't afford to maintain a property like that. How do you know what I can afford? Because we know what you make, Derek said impatiently. Whatever that Phoenix company pays you can't be more than $60,000 or $70,000 a year, if that. I took a slow sip of wine, a 2015 Bordeaux that retailed for $400 a bottle, though my family didn't need to know I'd personally selected it from our cellar. You know what, you're right, I said quietly. I can't afford to maintain Grandma Rose's house on my current salary. Smiles broke out around the table. Finally, little Sophie was being reasonable. So we can move forward with the sale? Mom asked. Oh, you can move forward with whatever you want regarding your portions. But you'll need to find a different buyer. Derek frowned. What do you mean? I already bought the house. Last month. Paid full market value, $2.8 million, as you mentioned. Derek and Melissa's portions have already been deposited in their accounts. The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible, Christina said flatly. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward them. Even Derek's eyes widened at the account balance. I also handled the renovations, I continued conversationally. New roof, foundation repair, full restoration of the original hardwood floors. The house is now worth approximately $4.2 million, according to the latest appraisal. Melissa's phone had stopped capturing her attention. How did you? Same way I bought the apartment building you live in, Melissa. The one where you've been 3 months behind on rent. My sister's face went pale. And Derek, I turned to my brother. I believe Whitman and Associates received a very generous settlement offer for that lawsuit they've been worried about. The one that could have bankrupted the firm. Derek was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. That settlement came from Phoenix Capital Management's legal fund. We occasionally help out struggling businesses with good potential. This is ridiculous, Mom said, though her voice lacked its usual authority. Even if you're telling the truth, which I doubt, where would you get that kind of money? I smiled and signaled to Maria, who appeared instantly at my side. Could you please ask Mr. Chin to join us? Of course, Ms. Harrison. Who's Mr. Chin? Dad asked. The general manager. I thought you might like to meet him, since you seem so interested in how businesses operate. A moment later, James Chin approached our table, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, the picture of professional competence. Good evening, Ms. Harrison. I hope you're enjoying your dinner. Everything has been perfect as always. James, I'd like you to meet my family. This is my father's 60th birthday celebration. How wonderful. Happy birthday, Mr. Harrison. Miss Harrison, should I arrange for the birthday cake now? In just a moment. First, my family was curious about Phoenix Capital Management. Could you explain our relationship with the restaurant? James smiled politely. Of course. Phoenix Capital Management is our parent company. They purchased Le Bernardine 18 months ago as part of their hospitality portfolio expansion. The wine glass slipped from Christina's hand, shattering against her plate. And Miss Harrison's role? Dad asked weakly. Ms. Harrison is the founder and CEO of Phoenix Capital Management. She personally oversaw our renovation and menu development. We're actually one of 7 restaurants in the PCM Hospitality Group now. I watched my family process this information. Melissa's mouth was hanging open. Derek had gone completely still. Christina was staring at the broken glass like it might reassemble itself. Mom looked like she'd been slapped. Thank you, James. We'll take the cake now. Right away, Ms. Harrison. As he walked away, the silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Sophie, I don't understand. If you own this restaurant, if you have this company, why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you, Dad? When you were explaining how I needed to think strategically. When Derek was offering me an entry-level position at his firm. When Mom was criticizing my clothes and my apartment and my life choices. But we're family, Melissa whispered. Are we? I asked. Because 20 minutes ago, Mom announced that I wasn't family anymore. I could see Mom's face reddening, but for once she seemed lost for words. Look, Derek said, clearly struggling to regain his composure. Maybe we misjudged the situation. But you have to understand how this looks from our perspective. You never said anything about having money. Would it have changed how you treated me? The question hung in the air like smoke. Of course not, Christina said quickly. Too quickly. Really? So all those comments about my clothes, my car, my apartment, those were just friendly observations. We were trying to help you, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. By making me feel worthless? That's not what we were doing. Then what were you doing when you compared me to Derek's achievements every chance you got? When you joked about me being the family disappointment? When you excluded me from family events because I might embarrass you? The birthday cake arrived, a spectacular creation with gold leaf and fresh berries. Under different circumstances, it would have been the highlight of the evening. Sophie, Dad said carefully, I think there may have been some misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? We never meant to make you feel unwelcome. We love you. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Do you? Because for the past 2 hours, you've criticized my job, my clothes, my life choices, my biological clock, and my financial prospects. You've offered to help me by getting me a job working for my brother, and you've unilaterally decided to sell our grandmother's house without consulting me. We thought we were being practical, Derek said weakly. You thought you were being superior. There's a difference. I stood up, placing my napkin on the table. Where are you going? Mom asked quickly. To check on something in the kitchen. Don't worry, I'll be back. I walked through the dining room, nodding to several regular customers who recognized me. In the kitchen, Marcus was putting the finishing touches on tomorrow's specials. How's the birthday dinner going? He asked with a knowing smile. About as expected. Are the papers ready? In your office. In your office. I made my way to the small office behind the kitchen that I used when I needed to work late at the restaurant. On the desk was a folder containing the documents I'd had my legal team prepare months ago, hoping I'd never need to use them. The Harrison Family Trust, an irrevocable trust I'd established with an initial funding of $50 million, designed to provide for my family's long-term financial security while protecting them from their own poor decision-making. Derek's gambling problem that he thought nobody knew about. Melissa's shopping addiction that had maxed out 6 credit cards. Christina's failed business ventures that Derek kept funding with borrowed money, and Mom and Dad's expensive lifestyle that was slowly eating away at their retirement savings. I'd been quietly managing their financial crises for 2 years, paying off debts, covering shortfalls and preventing disasters. Not because they'd asked for help but because despite everything they were still my family. But tonight had been the final straw. I returned to the table with the folder, setting it down beside my untouched cake. "What's that?" Mom asked. "Your financial future," I said simply. Or rather, what it was going to be. I opened the folder, revealing the trust documents with their signatures already witnessed and notarized. I'd had them sign what they thought were birthday cards earlier. "This is a trust one established for the Harrison family. $50 million invested conservatively, designed to provide each of you with a comfortable income for life." Derek's eyes went wide. $50 million? The trust was going to pay Mom and Dad $200,000 a year for life, Derek and Christina $150,000 annually, and Melissa $100,000. More than enough to maintain your current lifestyle without the financial stress I know you've all been dealing with. I could see the greed flickering in their eyes, the sudden recalculation of how they should treat me. "Was going to?" Dad asked carefully. "The trust agreement includes a dignity clause. If any family member publicly humiliates or disowns another family member, their interest in the trust is forfeited." I looked directly at Mom. "When you announced that I was no longer family, you triggered the clause." "But surely we can work something out," Christina said quickly. "This is all just a misunderstanding." "Is it? Because I have the whole dinner recorded." I tapped my phone. "Would you like to hear Mom announcing that I'm not family anymore? Or Derek explaining how I need to get serious about my future? Or your comments about my clothes?" The color drained from Christina's face. "Sophie," Dad said, his voice taking on the pleading tone I'd never heard from him before, "we made mistakes tonight. We said things we didn't mean. But we're still family. Are we?" I stood up again. "Because here's what's going to happen. You're all going to sit here and finish your dinner. You're going to sing happy birthday to Dad, and you're going to pretend this was a lovely family celebration." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "And tomorrow morning you're going to start figuring out how to solve your own financial problems. Derek, the Cayman Islands account you thought nobody knew about. The IRS received an anonymous tip about it today. Melissa, your credit card companies will be calling about those overdue balances. Christina, the loan you forged Dad's signature on? The bank has questions." The shocked silence was broken only by the sound of Derek's chair scraping against the floor as he stood up. "You can't do this," he said desperately. "We're family. We made mistakes, but you can't destroy us over one bad dinner." "I'm not destroying you, Derek. I'm just not saving you anymore." "Anymore?" Mom asked. "Who do you think has been covering Melissa's rent? Who paid off Derek's gambling debts to those loan sharks in Atlantic City? Who's been making the mortgage payments on Mom and Dad's house since Dad lost half his retirement savings in that bad investment?" Their faces told me everything I needed to know. They'd never even noticed. "I've been taking care of all of you for years, and you never once wondered how your problems kept magically solving themselves." I walked back to the table one last time. "But you know what? I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of being the family disappointment who happens to be rich enough to solve everyone's problems without getting any credit or respect." "Sophie, please," Mom whispered. "We can fix this. Can we? Because 20 minutes ago you told me I wasn't family anymore. Were you lying then, or are you lying now?" She couldn't answer. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to pay for this dinner yourselves. Derek, that includes the $800 bottle of wine you ordered. Then you're going to go home and figure out how functional adults handle their own problems." I picked up my purse and headed for the door. "Sophie, wait." Dad called after me. I paused in the doorway. "Happy birthday, Dad. I hope it was everything you wanted." The last thing I heard as I left was Christina asking Derek in a panic-stricken whisper, "How much money do we actually owe?" I walked through the restaurant's main dining room, nodding goodbye to James, who was discreetly ensuring the Harrison family's table wasn't disturbing the other guests. Outside, my driver was waiting with the car. "How did it go, Miss Harrison?" Michael asked as he opened the door. "About as expected. Let's go home." As we pulled away from the restaurant, my phone buzzed with text messages. Derek demanding to know how to reach me. Melissa crying about her rent. Christina begging me to reconsider. Even Dad trying to sound authoritative while asking if we could discuss this situation like adults. I turned off my phone and watched the city lights blur past the window. Tomorrow, I'd go back to my office at Phoenix Capital Management. I'd review the quarterly reports from our 17 subsidiary companies. I'd approve the final plans for the new hotel we were building in Miami. I'd make decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of dollars. But tonight, for the first time in my adult life, I was completely free from the weight of family expectations and obligations. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. Miss Harrison, this is James from Lou Bernardine. Your family left without paying the bill. Should we charge it to your account as usual? I smiled and typed back, no. Send it to collections if necessary. Then I turned off my phone for real and settled back into the leather seat. Outside, the city sparkled with possibility, and for the first time in years I felt truly at peace. The Harrison family would figure out how to survive without their safety net. They were resourceful people when they needed to be. And maybe, just maybe, they'd learn to appreciate what they'd lost. But that was their journey to make. Mine was just beginning. 3 months later, I received a handwritten letter from Dad. It was just 2 sentences. I understand now why you didn't tell us about your success. We didn't deserve to know. He signed it simply, love, your father who wants to earn your respect back. I kept the letter. It was the first time in my life he'd ever apologized for anything. And that, I thought, was worth more than all the money in the world.